I gave my brother 15 years of my career because I believed family businesses worked by different rules. When friends left for better paying jobs, I stayed. When competitors tried recruiting me, I politely declined. I knew the systems, the clients, and the people who depended on us. More importantly, I believed that helping my brother succeed meant we were building something our family could be proud of. I also had a 7-year-old son. Every financial decision I made carried his future with it. For years, I accepted a salary that never seemed to catch up with my responsibilities. Whenever I brought it up, my brother had the same answer. Things will improve. I wanted to believe him. Eventually, I was managing major accounts, negotiating contracts, training department heads, and solving problems before they reached his desk. Employees came to me first because they trusted I would listen before reacting. I never kept score. Until the afternoon, everything changed. We were reviewing next year's budget when I suggested adjusting compensation for senior staff. I included myself almost as an afterthought. My brother didn't even look at the spreadsheet. He leaned back and said quietly, "You're not valued past 50,000. The room went completely still. He wasn't angry. He wasn't shouting. He simply sounded convinced. I asked what he meant. He shrugged. "That's what the market says you're worth. If you leave, we'll replace you." 15 years collapsed into one sentence. I didn't argue. I closed my laptop, finished the meeting, drove home, and spent the evening helping my son with homework while pretending nothing had happened. After he went to bed, I sat alone in the kitchen. I wasn't thinking about pride. I was thinking about school expenses, medical bills, and the example I wanted to set for my son. If someone spends years treating your contribution as disposable, what lesson do you teach by staying? The next morning, my phone rang before 8. It was the CEO of my brother's largest competitor. We had met several times at industry conferences over the years. "I heard you're unhappy," he said. I laughed softly. "News travels fast." "It does." Then he paused. "I'll make this simple. 200,000, lead the division, build it the way you think it should be built." I didn't answer immediately. He continued, "I don't want gossip. I don't want confidential information. I want your leadership. That's why I'm calling." That distinction mattered. He wasn't asking me to damage anyone. He was asking me to lead. Over the next week, I spoke with my wife, reviewed the contract with an attorney, and thought carefully about every consequence. Leaving wasn't just changing jobs. It meant changing family dinners, holidays, birthdays, and probably my relationship with my brother for years. When I finally handed him my resignation, he looked almost amused. "So that's it? I've accepted another position. With them? Yes. They won't keep you." I simply nodded. "I hope you're wrong." There was no dramatic confrontation, no slammed doors, no speeches. I packed my office over 2 quiet afternoons. Some employees hugged me, others simply shook my hand longer than usual. Their silence said enough. 3 weeks later, my appointment was announced publicly. Industry publications covered the leadership change because several major clients had already expressed confidence in the transition. The recognition wasn't about the salary. It was about credibility. People whose opinions carried weight believed I could lead. That announcement changed everything. Clients who had always insisted on speaking with me continued doing so in my new role. Former colleagues reached out to congratulate me. Recruiters who had ignored me for years suddenly wanted meetings. For the first time in a long while, I realized my value had never been defined by one person's opinion. Months later, I crossed paths with my brother at an industry event. He looked tired. We exchanged a polite handshake. Neither of us mentioned the past. There wasn't much left to say. His company was still operating, but several experienced employees had left over the following months. Leadership transitions are rarely about replacing one person. They expose habits that had been quietly growing for years. Mine wasn't the cause of every problem, it simply revealed them. Today, my son doesn't know the details of what happened. He only knows that I come home less exhausted. that I'm present for his soccer games, and that our conversations at dinner aren't interrupted by constant work calls. One day, when he's old enough, I'll tell him this story, not because I want him to remember the salary, not because I want him to remember the company. I want him to remember that loyalty has value, but only when it's mutual. Sometimes the most respectful thing you can do for yourself, your family, and even the people who underestimated you is to quietly accept the opportunity that reminds you what your work is actually worth.